During Barack Obama's presidency, he did all that he could to compromise America's sovereignty and weaken our country with disgusting policies that favored our enemies around the world. Obama also allowed floods of refugees and illegal immigrants to swarm over our borders in an attempt to fundamentally transform the country into a socialist nightmare. Obama then alienated our allies such as Israel and in turn, buddied up to Muslim nations that pledged to do America harm. To add insult to injury, Obama then handed the United Nations more power in our country's affairs than ever before to pursue a one-world government. Everything was going along swimmingly for the global elite in their attempt to destroy America until Donald Trump was elected. Those plans to destroy the last beacon of freedom and hope in the world has been dashed, and the left is beside themselves with anger. Now, Trump just issued another blow to these anti-Americans which will show them not to mess with the United States again. Earlier this month, the left and the majority of Muslim world lost their minds when President Trump formally recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and pledged he would move the United States Embassy to that location. Predictably, the left went into a meltdown, not to mention the Muslim world, promising more bloodshed and attacks on the small nation. Soon after the announcement, the United Nations, who has a long history of animosity toward Israel, voted overwhelmingly to reject Trump's recognition of Israel's capital. President Trump formally recognizes Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. So Trump did what Trump does best, and has cut the United Nations budget by $285 million, the most significant budget cut in UN history. The following is the statement that UN Ambassador Nikki Haley put out about this stunning budget reduction. Today, the United Nations agreed on a budget for the 2018-2019 fiscal year. Among a host of other successes, the United States negotiated a reduction of over $285 million off the 2016-2017 final budget. In addition to these significant cost savings, we reduced the UN's bloated management and support functions, bolstered support for key U.S. priorities throughout the world, and instilled more discipline and accountability throughout the UN system. The inefficiency and overspending of the United Nations are well known. We will no longer let the generosity of the American people be taken advantage of or remain unchecked. This historic reduction in spending, in addition to many other moves toward a more efficient and accountable UN, is a big step in the right direction. While we are pleased with the results of this year's budget negotiations, you can be sure we'll continue to look at ways to increase the UN's efficiency while protecting our interests, said Ambassador Haley. What makes this budget cut so interesting is that it comes right after the UN General Assembly voted 128-9 against Trump's decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Even though the two are not related, this budget cut sends a strong message to the United Nations that America will not be swayed and we will decide what is best for our country. Even further, this budget reduction is a clear warning shot to other countries around the world that are against Israel that receive funding from the United States. Trump has publicly warned other countries that voted against recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital could witness their financial aid reduced too. The United States UN Ambassador Nikki Haley. According to Reuters, U.S. President Donald Trump on Wednesday threatened to cut off financial aid to countries that vote in favor of a draft United Nations resolution calling for the United States to withdraw its decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital. They take hundreds of millions of dollars and even billions of dollars, and then they vote against us. Well, we're in those votes. Let them vote against us. We'll save a lot. We don't care, Trump told reporters at the White House. Our country is in tremendous debt and cutting aid to nations that despise us and our greatest ally and friend is one way for us to save a few bucks. For years under the Obama administration, our country was stripped of our country's sovereignty and it is the time we take that back. The decisions we make as a nation should not be based on what is best for the global community, but what is best for our country, and if they don't like it, they don't have to be involved. The United Nations was given way too much power by the Obama administration and President Trump is just taking it back and handing it back to the people of the United States. End of the American dream. We have no tolerance for comments containing violence, racism, vulgarity, profanity, all caps, or discourteous behavior. Thank you for partnering with us to maintain a courteous and useful public environment where we can engage in reasonable discourse. After months of threats of America entering into World War III following repeat tests and provocations of war by North Korea's despot dictator, Kim Jong-un, a horrifying discovery was just found in the Atlantic. For the second time in a month, we're seeing something that hasn't happened since the Cold War, the first being Hawaii preparing for an attack, and now things have definitely gotten worse. While much of the world was celebrating Christmas with those they loved, someone else was taking advantage of the distraction and made a pivotal move in the dark of night. This time, it wasn't Kim Jong-un, and America has a definite reason to be concerned as world leaders start to take notice and make preparations. Conservative Daily Post reports, those who feel that there is not a new Cold War happening, one that is rapidly developing into the same dire state that the first one had, is not paying attention. The Washington Post has confirmed that Russian warships, famous for testing U.S. waters just as Russian jets have taunted American forces, are up to no good again as the world faced great instability during the world's most joyous holiday. There was a severe lacking of goodwill towards man as a British ship was forced to escort a Russian vessel as it passed near UK territorial waters over Christmas, Britain's defense ministry has confirmed, according to Yahoo News. It is said that such dangerous activity on behalf of the former Soviet state has increased over the Christmas season. Warships spotted in the Atlantic on Christmas Day. Russia has a reputation for being an Orthodox Christian nation, yet much like the 4th of July taunting of Obama that saw Russian ships in U.S. waters a few years ago, Putin often uses times of worship and celebration to act anything but godly. Reuters reports that the frigate HMS St. Albans departed on deck 23 inches to follow the movement of a Russian warship called the Admiral Gorshkov. It was in the North Sea and it was monitored over the Christmas holiday. Following the irresponsible Russian display, UK Defence Minister Gavin Williamson said that, "not hesitate in defending our waters or tolerate any form of aggression." UK Foreign Minister Boris Johnson has already addressed concerns about Russia's meddling in the world's elections. He had hoped to see relations normalize with Putin, but in light of this, that option does not seem to be playing out for him. Putin has been taunting the idea of threatening world peace instead of helping it, as the tensions rise with North Korea and he competes for power and negative attention with Kim Jong-un. This move also comes on the heels of major action being taken again in cooperative nations at the United Nations. President Donald Trump has given one of the best Christmas gifts the American people have ever gotten, and once again kept another one of his many promises. On Christmas Eve, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, announced that President Trump has given the order to cut its 2018 contribution to the United Nations by $285 million. That's a cut of nearly 25% and a great start in the plan to defund the anti-Semitic and anti-American United Nations. All this came about when more than 120 nations criticized the United States for its decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and for declaring, "We will be moving our embassy to said city." How dare we as a sovereign nation decide where we will put our embassy? Putin seems intent on causing turmoil and has been taunting our president with these calculated moves since April, when he did something similar in response to Trump bombing Syria after Syrian President Bashar al-Assad decided to gas his people. In April, Putin tried to block America from attacking by positioning his military in front of ours and attempting to grandstand the U.S., saying we have to go through them to get to Syria. In a strange coincidence, yesterday's airstrike was exactly 100 years to the day of U.S. entering into World War I. After Putin's latest move, this day could also bring about the Third World War depending on what strategy is employed next. As Russia moves their warships into place and promises to create an air defense system for Syria, they have forgotten one key item. There is a new sheriff in town, and the snowflakes have gone home. Russia's archaic military is no match for General Mattis's current military muscle. Our ships and war plans are light years beyond the Russian counterpart. So rattle your saber, Putin, the real world superpower just returned. In what's being reported as a freak, unfortunate private plane and helicopter accident, where the two aircrafts collided mid-air, leaving 4 dead, is far more mysterious than is being said, based on who was on board and is now dead. Air traffic control staff shortages have been blamed for this collision, which is a convenient excuse to cover up a connection one of the victims has to Hillary, who always seems to come up in random tragic events like this. The Telegraph reported on the mid-air collision, with a not-so-ironic landing spot. 4 people have been killed in a mid-air collision between a helicopter and light aircraft flying from an airfield where air traffic control had been shut due to staff shortages. Wreckage from the aircraft tumbled from the sky and landed just over a mile from the former home of the Rothschild banking family at Waddesdon Manor in Buckinghamshire, yesterday lunchtime. Members of the Rothschild reported hearing a loud bang, and a plume of smoke could be seen above trees. The Air Accidents Investigation Branch said the collision involved a helicopter and a 2-seat Cessna 152 aircraft, each carrying 2 people. Both of the craft had taken off from Wickham Air Park, 23 miles away near High Wycombe. A notice to airmen was previously issued to warn pilots the airfield's air traffic control services would be closed during 3 30-minute periods on selected days between November 7 to 30 due to a staff shortage. The crash occurred around half an hour after the latest closure was due to end. What makes this collision strange, outside of how it happened, is that it took place right outside the Rothschild estate and only 3 of the 4 victims have been named. It's being speculated that Lord Jacob Rothschild is among the casualties, and if true, this could be really bad for Hillary. So far, the only victims to be identified, perhaps on purpose, is the pilot of the helicopter, Captain Mike Green, and a student and flight instructor aboard the Cessna, 18-year-old Sabin Monday, who was being instructed by Jaspal Burha, according to The Sun. So, was Jacob Rothschild, with a very big connection to the Clintons, the 4th victim? Several sources seem to suggest that's the case, but the Rothschild estate has not confirmed nor denied Jacob's well-being. BBC News, aircraft and helicopter in mid-air crash in Waddesdon. https://t.co/ziogwigpjf. Why is this significant? It's a Rothschild house. The Rothschilds are commonly believed to have engineered World War I in order to force the British government into creating Israel by getting them to sign the Balfour Declaration in 1917. Lord Rothschild also boasted that the New World Order, which his family heads, would be in place by 2018. We must reiterate that it's not confirmed who the 4th passenger is, but it's suspicious that this victim has not been identified when the other 3 were. Sources suggesting that it was Jacob are only doing so as an assumption. What is fact, is that this collision took place near the Rothschild estate, which is strange considering it could have gone down anywhere, and perhaps there was a reason the aircrafts went down here. Another day and another dead body with a connection that cannot be ignored, as Hillary Clinton's body count seems to be on the rise once again, after a brief reprieve of no sudden, mysterious casualties. The latest is possibly the most shocking yet in the truly startling trail of dead bodies that keep accumulating around this crooked woman with major secrets she's desperate to keep hidden no matter who she has to kill off to ensure it. Hillary begged for forgiveness and didn't get it, and now someone whom she owed penance is suspected of being caught in her wrath. Here's Hillary Clinton's connection with the Rothschild and why she had previously begged them for forgiveness. According to True Activist, Hillary Clinton asked Lady de Rothschild, "Let me know what penance I owe you," after requesting Tony Blair accompany her on official business, preventing him from attending a Rothschild event scheduled for that same weekend. Several politicians, especially those who are the most willing to bend over backwards for wealthy interests, have made their careers by catering to the whims of the Rothschilds and other families like them. In U.S. politics today, there is no better example of this archetype than Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton. In fact, less than 2 months ago, Clinton flew just 20 miles in a private jet to attend a private Rothschild fundraiser in her honor. Yet, this is just one of the latest examples of her intimate relationship to the banking dynasty. In emails from her private server made available to the public by WikiLeaks, Clinton's close relationship to Lady de Rothschild is evident due to their warm exchanges, which include phrases such as, "You are the best, sweet dreams," "I remain your loyal adoring pal," and "much love." This is significant, as, judging by Clinton's other emails, her communication style is almost always curt and concise, never approaching the outright declarations of affection found only in her exchanges with Lady de Rothschild. Lady de Rothschild married into the Rothschild family in 2000 after being introduced to Sir Evelyn de Rothschild, who alone is worth $20 billion. At the 1998 Bilderberg Conference, war criminal Henry Kissinger served as the couple's matchmaker. Yet, the most bizarre interaction between Clinton and Lady de Rothschild took place in an email titled, "Info for You, ID." In the email, Clinton tells Lady de Rothschild that she had to ask Tony Blair, then Prime Minister of England, to accompany her to Israel due to the Middle East peace negotiations taking place at the time. Blair had previously planned to spend the weekend in Aspen, Colorado with the Rothschilds at an unspecified conference, but accepted Clinton's invitation. Clinton then says, "I hope you all understand. Let me know what penance I owe you." For those who are not familiar with the word, penance is defined as follows: an act of self-mortification or devotion performed voluntarily to show sorrow for a sin or other wrongdoing. Does this like something Hillary Clinton would normally say? Hillary Clinton never seems to be able to escape scandal, and as long as she's a free woman, rather than being locked up where she belongs, she will be continued to be questioned in everything that she has any kind of connection to. Diplomacy is always the first choice when it comes to diffusing any situation thought to be headed to military conflict. As any preschooler could tell you, it's always best to use your words and not violence. However, while that's the policy of most of the Western world, and any country that is led by democracy, it's not the policy of the North Korean dictator, Kim Jong-un, who only seemed to be worried about his own glory. The toddler-like leader has proven he's only interested in spending his time finding new ways to memorialize himself in the minds of the world. While it's unclear what he hopes to achieve by threatening to attack the United States, which he's done on countless occasions, the general idea seems to be what it has been for many narcissistic leaders before him: the desire to rule the world. The idea that a tiny dictatorship like North Korea has any chance of winning a world war on its own speaks to just how few people are willing to speak the truth to Jong-un. However, after months of President Trump and other world leaders attempting to encourage Jong-un to give up his nuclear tests, he continues his threats, and the United States has had enough. The New York Post reports that the president has given the orders, and the United States is preparing to take back America by force. While it's obviously that if it came to all-out war, America would win, hands down, the concern that North Korea might do damage to innocent Americans has prompted our military to neutralize the threat. Before that happens, the U.S. is preparing plans to deliver a bloody nose attack against North Korea to knock out its nuclear weapons program. The White House has dramatically ramped up its military plans amid fears that diplomacy won't thwart North Korean despot Kim Jong-un from making good on his threats, sources told the UK's Telegraph. Just hearing that the United States is going to do something about North Korea might seem a little vague, but rest assured, the military forces in the area have a lot of options available to them. Because North Korea is such a small country, and because they've been very clear about what their military force is like, once the word is given to mobilize, it won't take very long before the threat is completely put down. One option is destroying a launch site before the rogue regime uses it for a new missile test, while another is targeting weapons stockpiles, according to the news outlet. The Trump administration hopes that preemptive action would show the trigger-happy dictator that the United States is serious about stopping his bellicose pursuits and persuading him to negotiate. The Telegraph cited 3 anonymous sources, 1 inside the administration and 2 former officials familiar with the White House, thinking the Pentagon is trying to find options that would allow them to punch the North Koreans in the nose, get their attention and show that we're serious, a former U.S. security official briefed on policy told the Telegraph. President Trump's decision to launch 59 cruise missiles against a Syrian airfield in response to the country's chemical weapons attack that killed more than 80 civilians is considered an indication of his resolve, the paper reported. The current plans indicate that Trump is more willing to use a military option than previously thought. Last week, Republican Sen. Lindsey Graham told The Atlantic he believed there was a 30% chance of Trump using a military option, but that if the Hermit Kingdom tested another nuclear weapon, that percentage would skyrocket to 70%. One British source who recently attended a briefing with U.S. National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster and other officials left feeling alarmed by Trump's mindset, according to the outlet. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson has pushed for negotiations with North Korea, but has been undercut by Trump, who insulted Kim and described diplomacy as a waste of time. Last week, Tillerson appeared to soften the U.S. stance on talks with North Korea amid spiking tension over its nuclear and missile programs. He said the U.S. was ready to hold exploratory talks without preconditions, but that North Korea would need to hold off on further weapons testing. North Korea tested its 6th and most powerful nuclear weapon in September. It also tested 3 intercontinental ballistic missiles, including one whose theoretical range encompassed the entire U.S. mainland. There have been a lot of theories as to what to do with Kim Jong-un and the roughly 25 million people living under his tyrannical rule. The stories that have come out of the sad country make one think that there should be hostage negotiators involved, considering that the people of North Korea are little more than hostages who've grown up knowing it as their only way of life. If ever there was a time to free a people from their own government, even if we weren't at risk, North Korea is the country to free. They epitomize the huddled masses, yearning to breath free that America specializes in. Hope there will be no loss of life, but the United States military has been sent to ensure that if there is, it won't be American and that Kim Jong-un be put out of power once and for all. HT, New York Post.